Welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump straight in today because we are looking at a story that completely blurs the line between ancient mythology and modern science. Just imagine a glittering metropolis, a legendary sunken city boasting over 900,000 palaces made of gold, silver, and precious gems. A city that, according to ancient texts, just vanished, swallowed by the waves over 5,000 years ago. For centuries, everyone assumed this was just a fantastic story, but what if it wasn't?
So that brings us to the central question we're tackling today. Is the sunken city of Dawarka just an ancient myth? Or is it a historical truth resting right now at the bottom of the Arabian Sea? It's pretty fascinating to see how a legendary tale passed down through generations could actually transition into a verified archaeological marvel. That's exactly the mystery we're going to unravel.
Real quick, here's our roadmap. We'll go through the Golden City's birth, a curse in the fall, the quest for truth, Dr. Rao's historic dig, science meets mythology, and wrap up with a scientific sinking.
All right, Section 1, the Golden City's birth.
Okay, so according to ancient epics like the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna originally lived in Mathura, but Mathura was under constant threat. It was actually attacked 17 times by a vengeful ruler named Jarasandha. Now, Krishna successfully defended the city every single time, but eventually he decided that for the peace and ultimate security of his people, they needed a new, impenetrable kingdom. Seeking this haven, he went to the coast and prayed to the sea god Varuna. The texts tell us Varuna granted him exactly 12 yojanas of land from the sea, which translates to roughly 153.6 kilometers. That is an incredibly specific number for a mythological text, right? It gives us our very first geographical anchor for this legendary city.
And on this reclaimed land, an absolute marvel was built. According to the texts, the god of architecture, Vishwakarma, engineered a totally self-sufficient metropolis. We're talking palaces of gold and silver, incredibly advanced irrigation systems with freshwater ponds, and highly specialized ports. The urban planning was said to be so advanced that the massive, wide roads of the city led directly to the docks, making trade completely seamless. It was basically a thriving, heavily fortified maritime paradise.
Moving on to Section 2, a curse and the fall.
You know, where there's a spectacular rise, there's usually a tragic fall. The grandeur of Dawarka was destined for a watery grave, beginning right at the end of the devastating Mahabharata war. Following all that colossal bloodshed, a grieving mother, Gandhari, who had lost all her sons, confronted Krishna. Believing he could have stopped the war, she cursed him in her anguish, saying, "Just as my lineage has been destroyed, so too will yours meet its end." According to the epics, this foundational curse set the stage for the dark days that would eventually consume the Yaduvanshi lineage and the glorious city of Dawarka itself.
The sequence of events leading to the end is just wild. It all started when Krishna's son Samba played a disrespectful prank on a group of visiting sages. Enraged, the sages cursed him to give birth to an iron pestle that would destroy their entire clan. The clan panicked and tried to destroy this pestle by grinding it into dust and throwing it into the sea. But that dust was swallowed by a fish. The fish was caught by a hunter named Jara, and Jara used the remaining metal to forge an arrow. Meanwhile, the city fell into severe moral decay. Intoxicated infighting broke out at Prabhas, leading to a massive civil war. And finally, while resting in a forest, Krishna was accidentally struck by the hunter Jara's arrow. With Krishna's departure from the world, the magnificent city of Dawarka slowly sank beneath the waves.
Let's look at Section 3, the quest for truth.
For thousands of years, the epic was considered just a moral fable. Entering the 20th century, modern historians widely dismissed Dawarka as purely a myth. But the clues were getting way too loud to ignore. In the 1930s, fishermen and even pilots flying over the Arabian Sea started reporting these strange, straight-line underwater structures near the coast of Gujarat. Then we get a massive breakthrough in the 1970s. Government records highlighted a 6th century copper plate from a king named Sinhad that explicitly mentioned Krishna's residence in this exact region. Suddenly, history and mythology were starting to intersect.
That takes us to Section 4, Dr. Rao's historic dig.
So the clues were there, but someone actually needed to go down and look. Enter Dr. S.R. Rao. He was an incredibly determined archaeologist who launched India's very first marine archaeology expedition back in 1979 against overwhelming skepticism from the scientific community. And honestly, the most shocking part? He started with a budget of just 800 rupees. Seriously, think about that for a second. Dr. Rao launched his initial, under-equipped expedition with essentially pocket change. He didn't have high-tech sonar or fancy underwater robots. He just had local fishermen, old boats,
basic diving gear, and a fierce determination to prove that the texts were historical roadmaps, not just fairy tales.
And between 1983 and 1992, that determination paid off spectacularly. 30 meters deep, they found a massive 560-meter-long human-made stone wall. They uncovered over 30 massive stone pillars, the clear remnants of structured palace-like buildings. And crucially, they found heavy three-hole stone anchors. These specific anchors were absolute proof of an advanced ancient harbor and complex navigation. Dr. Rao had basically proven the site wasn't just natural rock. It was a highly advanced ancient port exactly where the scriptures said it would be.
Section 5. Science meets mythology. By the 1990s, the existence of a sunken city was undeniable. Moving into the 21st century, the initial lack of funding was finally overcome, and it was time to bring in the heavy machinery to map exactly what was down there. From 2001 to 2007, a massive collaborative expedition led by Dr. Alok Tripathi brought high-tech equipment right into the Gulf of Kutch. They scanned over 4,000 square meters of the seabed using advanced sonar. And what they revealed was a highly planned city layout. They pulled up terracotta seals, enormous limestone blocks, and hard evidence of complex drainage systems. Furthermore, their subdatum profilers mapped the ruins and discovered that the buildings hadn't collapsed all at once in a massive crash. They had slid slowly and progressively into the sea.
But here's the detail that truly shocked the scientific community. When they sent recovered artifacts to international labs for carbon dating, one of the recovered pots was dated to be up to 9,000 years old. I mean, that predates even the ancient Harappan civilization of the Indus Valley. At the same time, other artifacts and structures tested at around 5,000 years old, which perfectly matches the traditional timeline of the Mahabharata and the Dwapara Yuga era.
Finally, Section 6. The scientific sinking.
So we have the city, the architecture, and the timeline. But what natural scientific force actually swallowed this metropolis? Well, the answer lies in the sea level rise theory. Oceanographers and geologists analyzing historical sea levels found that between 11,000 and 5,000 years ago, there was a sudden, rapid, and massive rise in global sea levels by up to 25 meters. A huge oceanic surge like that provides a scientifically sound, perfectly logical explanation for how an entire coastal metropolis could just be engulfed by water.
What's really amazing is that this wasn't an isolated event. Global sea level data reveals that at the exact same time Dawarka was sinking, massive oceanic surges were drastically altering coastlines in places like the Caribbean and Indonesia. The timeline of this documented global geological event precisely matches the timeline described in the epics for the sinking of Dawarka. So the myth is quite literally backed by global geological data.
And the relevance of this discovery is still incredibly present today. In 2024, an official expedition involving the Indian Navy and Prime Minister Narendra Modi took place at Panchkai Beach. The Prime Minister actually scuba dived down to visually reconnect with the underwater ruins and pay respects at the site. It was a remarkable moment that bridged ancient heritage with modern awareness, demonstrating how ancient texts and modern scientific exploration can intersect to reveal our shared history.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. If a legendary city, as grand, as mythical, and as magnificent as Dawarka, was proven entirely real by modern science, what other ancient truths are still hiding out there in the silence of our oceans? How much of what we just brush off as mythology is actually just history, waiting for us to invent the right archaeological tools to uncover it? It's a pretty fascinating thought to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning what you think you know.